In today's video, we're going to talk about creating a self-care action plan, and we're going to create the self-care action plan together, and it's going to be specific to your self-care needs. I'm also going to be sharing with you some of the most important things that we need as highly sensitive people in our daily self-care practice. This video is a second video. It's a follow-up video to a video that I created last week, which I'll link to in the description below. If this is the first time that you are watching one of my videos, if you are new to my channel, my name is Tersha, and I help highly sensitive people and empaths find their place in this world. And on this YouTube channel, on my YouTube channel, you'll find videos around spirituality and self-growth. I have some guided meditations, and I also share energy healing techniques, tools, and tips with you. To make it easier to follow along, I've divided this video up in two parts. So in part one, we're going to look at self-care, my definition of self-care, and the importance really of self-care, specifically also for highly sensitive people. And then in part two, we are then going to begin to create our self-care action plan. And I also have a free download which you can use in order to help you to create this self-care action plan, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on in the video. So let's begin then with part one to talk about self-care, a definition of self-care. And here I feel I want to get onto my little soapbox and say self-care is not a luxury, right? Self-care is not pampering. Self-care is not going for facials and manicures and pedicures and spending money on expensive treatments. That is not the self-care that we're talking about here. The self-care that I'm talking about is the things that nourish your soul. It is the things that allow you to honor yourself. It is those things that really fulfill you. And my definition then of self-care is any activity that restores you, revitalizes you, and recharges you. So it's anything that fills you with joy, that makes you feel peace, that makes you feel fulfilled, it makes you feel content, and it makes you feel happy. Those are the things that nourish our soul, and that is what we want to create in our daily self-care practice. If you're a highly sensitive person, your nervous system automatically, because that's the way that you have been built and put together, your nervous system automatically becomes overwhelmed and overstimulated a lot faster than people who are not highly sensitive, for example. And I'm not going to really get into the details now of what it means to be highly sensitive. I've created a couple of videos around that, which I will link to in the description below. So if you want to find out more about being highly sensitive and how you can deal with being highly sensitive, how you can manage that, then go and take a look at the videos in the description. So for this self-care video, all that I want to say about being highly sensitive is, even more so than any other person in the world, highly sensitive people need self-care to be able to thrive, to be able to cope. Self-care is a non-negotiable for us. And again, not the type of self-care that we do once a week or when we feel that we are really exhausted and nearing burnout, but self-care has to become an integral part of your day. Highly sensitive people have three very specific self-care needs. These are the three things that we need in order to be able to thrive. The first thing that we need is movement. So it can be walking, it can be running, it can be swimming, it can be doing yoga or stretches, any type of movement. And the reason why we need movement is, as highly sensitive people, because we overthink things and because of the level at which we process information, we tend to spend a lot of time up here in our minds. What you are actually doing, the act of moving, automatically grounds you into your body. So it brings you back into your body, and your body is in the present moment. So when we are in the present moment, we can't really spend much time, back there or out there, because the present moment is right here, and movement is going to bring you into your body, which then locks you into the present moment. So that's why movement is so important for highly sensitive people. The second type of self-care that we need as highly sensitive people is we need time to process. We need time to think about the things that we have experienced. We need time to think about the observations and the things that we've noticed, and to really process and work through all of the experiences that we had. And then the third thing, which is crucial as a self-care practice for highly sensitive people, is that we need alone time. When you have alone time, it helps you to process all of the stimuli, all of the information that you've come across during your day. And this alone time also allows you to reflect, and it allows you to have some introspection, to go within, which is also one of the things that really feed our souls as highly sensitive people, is to spend some time in reflection. Now on to part 2 of the video, which is creating our self-care action plan. And there are 2 ways, I guess, in which you can do this. The first way is to pause and write down your answers as we go, or your ideas as we go through the video, and then continue watching, pause and write down again. Or the second way in which you can do this is you can watch the whole video to get an overall idea, so go through it once. And then you download my free self-care action plan worksheet, which I will link for you in the description below. So we really want to create practical and useful activities that you can do every day. There are 5 core self-care categories that I want to just quickly take you through. The first self-care category is physical self-care. So those are all of the activities and the things that you can do to take care of your body. Think about movement, think about the food that you eat, think about getting enough sleep, getting enough rest. So any physical thing that you can do to support you and to nurture you. The second type of self-care is emotional self-care. So those are all of the activities that you do to support your emotions, to start beginning to heal some of those wounds that we spoke about earlier. So think about things like journaling, where you really expressing what's going on for you. Think about things like meditation, where you are doing some inner healing, inner child work through the meditation, for example. The third type of self-care is mental self-care. And this is all the things that you feed your mind, all right? So here, think about the type of media or news information that you consume. Think about the way in which you speak to yourself. You can begin to change that with mantras and affirmations. Think about the things that you read, and also included in this mental self-care is where we begin to reprogram some of those limiting beliefs, which I also spoke about in the previous video, in part 1, the first video on this self-care for highly sensitive people series. So remember to go and take a look at that video for some more information on that. The next type of self-care is then relational or social self-care, and this is really where we engage with other people in our lives. And then the fifth self-care category is spiritual self-care, and this is so important because, you know, we need to connect to something greater than ourselves in order to feel peace, in order to have hope. We receive hope by connecting to something greater than ourselves. And think here about things like prayer and meditation. We might even find, you know, a spiritual connection in listening to a beautiful piece of music or looking at a beautiful piece of art. So those then are the 5 categories. And just now, as we begin to create our self-care action plan, I want you to keep those categories in the back of your mind. We need to identify what brings us joy. Remember how I said we all have different things that fulfill us, and this is the first step in creating your self-care action plan, is to identify all of those things that bring you joy, that fulfill you. the things that fill you with peace, the things that make you feel rested, the things that recharge you. Anything stimulating your senses. Meditating, journaling, listening to soul-stirring music. There are so many possibilities here of things that you can do. So allow your mind to just, roam freely and think about anything that you can sense is really going to support you and restore you and recharge you. Those are the kind of activities that we want to go after. Let's now move on to the second part of creating your self-care action plan, and this is to know your triggers. And you really want to know what these triggers are, because if you know that this is what triggers me, then you can begin to plan to anticipate, if I am going to be in a situation where there is a potential trigger, how can I handle that? How can I take my self-care into this situation to make sure that I don't become overwhelmed or overstimulated? So it's very useful if we begin to know what our own triggers are and know what our own responses are. The things that you might notice that shows you that you are overstimulated or overworked is you might begin to feel what I call fried. When you feel fried, or you feel dizzy or wired. You might find that you cry for everything, you cry at the drop of a hat. And some of the things that might trigger you are bright lights, or loud noises, or lots of people, big crowds. How do you respond when you get hungry, or when you feel too warm or too cold, or when you haven't had enough sleep? Now moving on to part 3 of our self-care action plan, and that is to focus on the things that you can control. The fastest way to feel like you are powerless and that you are a victim and that things are out of your control is to pay attention, or to focus only on those things that are out of your control. So the things in your life that you can control, I want you to write that down now on your paper. What are the things that you can control? Think about your emotional response. Think about the way that you take care of yourself. Think about the types of media and news that you choose to consume. Think about the way that you show up for yourself and that you show up for the people in your life. Those are the things that we have control over. So focus on the things that you can control. The reason why this is such an important part of the self-care is because this is part of healing, right? If we change our focus from an external locus of control to more of an internal locus where we begin to choose how we show up, we begin to choose how we are going to emotionally respond to the things that are happening in our world, that gives us a sense of grounding, it gives us a sense of stability, and it makes us stronger. That is part of what it means to show up authentically. And that is part of self-care. All right. So if we focus on the things that we can control, it gives us the ability to be there for ourselves. All right. Which is essential to self-care. And now we move on to our final step, which is to create a routine. And the reason why I like to create a routine for self-care is when I have a self-care routine, when I know that these are definitely the things that I'm going to do, it is A, easier for me to stick to it, and B, I don't have to think about what it is that I'm going to do. Our brains like routines because it then eliminates one more thing to think about. So routines are very useful when you want to begin to create a new habit. So what I want you to do is go over your list. Take a look now at all of the things that you wrote down in terms of what brings you joy, so those activities. Also review your triggers and focus on the things, or look at the things that you can control. The things that you can control in your own life. So look at all 3 of those things. And now I want you to choose one thing from this list that you will be able to do every day. Keep in mind your lifestyle, your life situation, and what are the things that you can bring in right now without disrupting things so much that you are going to rather not do it just because it's not worth the effort. So this then is how to create a self-care action plan for yourself. I hope that you found this helpful and that the action plan is really inspired you, or that you feel inspired rather now to go and do this as a daily activity. And I'd love to know from you in the comments below, what do you think about this action plan? Is there anything that you would like me to add to it? Were you unclear about something? Or do you think that you will be able to really create a consistent, practical and holistic self-care routine for yourself every day based on all of the information that I took you through in this video? If you've enjoyed this video, then I want you to please let me know by giving me a thumbs up so that I know you want more of these. And I would also love for you to share this with a highly sensitive person in your life. The more information that we can get out about our trait of high sensitivity, the better, because it really is so great to be educated about these things. There's a lot of empowerment in educating ourselves. I also want to invite you to subscribe. If you haven't yet subscribed, then go on and subscribe right now. I hope that you enjoy creating the self-care plan, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.